Notes on the Congress of Vienna. This is page 12 of your packet. Take these notes, rewatch if you need to, as usual. So let's talk about Napoleon. 1812, this was the map of Europe at the time. The dark blue is the French Empire, so directly controlled by Napoleon, as he had proclaimed himself Emperor of France. The light blue areas are dependent states. So these are governments that are technically separate from the French Empire, the Napoleonic Empire, but are puppets. They're kind of basically controlled by Napoleon. So you can see the dark blue and light blue areas are areas directly controlled by Napoleon himself. The purple areas are areas that are controlled basically by the allies of Napoleon. So he controls pretty much everything. As you learned in a previous lesson, Napoleon was defeated. And in 1814, the leaders of nations across Europe met to create a plan for peace to stop more wars, and they called these meetings the Congress of Vienna. They called it the Congress of Vienna because it took place right here in Vienna, a major city in Austria, which is at the center of the heart of Europe. And so all these leaders came together and they met to discuss the plans for a future Europe. Remember, this is all about peace. Europe had been seeing nonstop war for hundreds of years, and they were kind of getting sick of it. Napoleon was basically the last straw. So here we have the leaders in Europe gathering together to discuss how to create a long-lasting peace now that Napoleon has been defeated. So again, map of Europe in 1812. This is how the map was redrawn in 1814 at the Congress of Vienna. So you see France, still a rather large nation state. The Austrian Empire has been restored. Russia, it has been restored. Poland, still a dependent state on Russia and Prussia. The Ottoman Empire restored. The Italian states are independent. Netherlands are independent. Switzerland's independent. And Germany's got this weird confederation thing going on that's not actually one government. Confederation is when you have lots of separate governments that are co-equal, and it's a really complicated system that just doesn't work. So this is kind of a reset of the map before the Napoleonic Wars, and this is what was agreed on at the Congress of Vienna. So this was led by Clemens von Metternich from Austria. This is the fancy guy, Clemens himself. He was an important person, foreign minister in the Austrian Empire, and he came into these meetings, the Congress of Vienna, with the idea of basically stopping wars, right? Creating peace in Europe. And he said, look, I got three goals for this. First, we got to stop France from attacking other countries in the future. Because how do we do this? First and foremost, these countries that surround France, Great Britain, Netherlands, the German Confederation, Switzerland, these Italian states down here, Spain, we want to make sure they're stronger. We strengthen them, so we restore their lands, and we make sure they've got the military power they need to resist France. Second, we don't want to punish France too severely. So France had controlled a great deal of land prior to the Napoleonic Wars, the purple here. And they said, we're not going to take away the land they already controlled. We're just going to take away the new land that they conquered in the Napoleonic Wars. So again, this was the Congress of Vienna was basically hitting the reset button on the borders of France. So France was restored to its original borders, and the nation states around it, the states around it, were strengthened so they can resist in case France ever tried to attack them again. Second, he wanted to create a balance of power so that no nation could threaten other nations. So this was done basically by, again, restoring borders, but to where they were before the Napoleonic Wars, but making sure that there were alliances in place that could kind of even everything out. So no one country, no one nation state or empire could threaten the other empires the way Napoleon had before. So 1812 map of Europe, and here we have, again, what it looked like after the Congress of Vienna. So his third goal was to restore all monarchs dethroned by Napoleon, and this included the monarchy of France. So again, the Congress of Vienna, is, I keep saying it over and over again, is basically hitting the reset button on Europe. So the land borders were reset, the monarchs were reset, and that's kind of how they went here. So finally, you have to ask the question, was this successful? Was the Congress of Vienna a successful endeavor in stopping wars in Europe? And the overwhelming answer is yes, absolutely. None of the major powers in Europe, so France, Austrian Empire, Ottoman Empire, Russian Empire, Great Britain, none of them went to war with each other for the next 40 years. Like, this is a huge, long, interrupted period where major powers in Europe aren't fighting each other. So that led to peace. Some of the countries didn't actually fight each other for the rest of the century. Didn't really go to war with each other for another 100 years at the outbreak of World War I. So overwhelmingly, the Congress of Vienna, of course, was overwhelmingly a successful endeavor. But it went beyond the Congress of Vienna. In 1815, the next year, European leaders were still nervous about the French Revolution, and they didn't want it to happen in their countries. So, again, the Congress of Vienna was about stopping one country, one empire, from being able to conquer all the others. The concerts of Europe were basically about stopping revolutions within countries. So what the concerts of Europe were basically a series of alliances between leaders of European nation states, European empires, that said that if there's a revolution inside your borders, the rest of us are going to come down to your country and stop that from happening. And if there's a revolution in my borders, all of you are going to come to my country and stop that revolution. So this kind of addressed the underlying problem. What started the Napoleonic Wars was one, Napoleon, but also the French Revolution itself. So the Congress of Vienna stopped wars from happening between major powers in Europe. The Concert of Europe was designed to stop revolutions within Europe. But these changes also went beyond that. In the New World, Spanish colonies began to revolt against Spain winning independence. These included countries such as Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, Bolivia. These nation states were now independent of the Spanish Empire and began to develop their own governments. And so you see the Western Hemisphere kind of changing. We've been ignoring a lot of the Western Hemisphere in this class. And then finally, soon people in Italy, Germany, and Greece, among other places, began to rebel from their empires and wanted to form their own nation states. So Greece, which is down here, is actually part of the Ottoman Empire. And they said, look, our culture, our language, our history is different from the rest of the Ottoman Empire. We are a different nation, a different group of people. We deserve to have our own state, our own government, and they rebelled. Then you saw it happening in Germany, right? So these different states within the German Confederation were like, why are we part of these different empires? There was a German nation, a German people. The German people deserve to have one single unified government, and there started to be basically movements to break away from the German Confederation. The Prussian and Austrian empires are creating their own German nation state, and then you saw this happening in Italy as well, which basically since the end of the Roman Empire have been divided up into multiple different kingdoms. And so there's a movement, as we'll learn soon in Italy, to unite into a single cohesive nation state with the Italian language, the Italian culture, the Italian history. And all this, we call this nationalism, the want of a group of people who share a common language, history, and culture to have their own government. And we call these governments nation states. And this actually leads directly into World War I, which we'll be learning about in our final unit.